Mehrdad Seyf is another returner after 10 years to this programme. He's a playwright and founder of 30 Bird Productions, the Anglo-Iranian theatre company. It was pretty new, wasn't it, when we met 10 years ago?
Yes, it was only the second production then.
You've just finished now a tour of your new play, Persian Revolution, which one critic described as a gorgeous-looking piece of serious fun. That's a terrific review, isn't it?
Yes, well, we had a very camp show, or two shows. One was a camp show and the other one was a ball breaker, sort of kneed his courtiers in the groin, in the middle of, talking about serious stuff, about the conflict between Islam and secularism. So it was quite a difficult project that had to marry the two together.
Well, you were offering a sort of mini history of Persia mutating into Iran, weren't you, of what happened to your country?
Yes, although when I was first approached, it was a commission, and I knew about that period, and I knew what a minefield it was going to be to actually create a play about that, without it being a sort of history lesson. So I refused about 3 or 4 times until the money was up to enough, I think, in terms of investment in the project. I hastened to. And then we went ahead with it. But it was a difficult project, and I'm glad we've pulled it off just.
Well, before that there was Majnun, which is again about contemporary Iran. It has been a sort of mission for you, hasn't it, to make us try to understand the complex layers of your country, because it isn't as simple. It gets made very simple in political statements and even more simple in episodes of Spooks.
Oh God, yes.
Which we've all been.
I only watched it for 5 minutes. I didn't want to break my television, but there you go. No, and also it's all politics. Everything you get about Iran is just politics, and that's not the case. It's a much more interesting and complex country. With Majnun, for example, I was looking at the introduction of Western modernism into Iran, which is what happened in the 1920s and 30s, and some of that is hilarious. They made men wear trilby hats, for example.
They were compulsory, weren't they? Western clothes.
About 2,000 men were killed because they protested. They refused to wear trilby hats. And you think, well, what's the sociological reason for that? No, they just refused to wear trilby hats. And when you look back at it, on the one hand, it's quite funny, and it's quite tragic at the same time. Or women were forced to wear, this Edwardian Tea Party hats, along with their sort of costumes. They were chased and veils were put off, and men and women were put together forcibly. And they were forced to socialise.
Like a sort of reverse of Islamic fundamentalism, really.
Totally.
Sort of anti-Islamic fundamentalism.
Except that now, when you look back at it, it's hilarious. And I know, of course, my grandparents went through it, and the way they used to talk about it, was with a mixture of laughter and fear.
And I'm particularly interested in an idea which you've expressed before, that there is a liberalising influence in Iran which is coming up from the grassroots and coming up from the arts. And I noticed that lately there was a report that Iranian television aired sort of a version of Schindler's List, a story of a Persian diplomat who helps Jews escape the Holocaust. And this was on television and in 40s clothing, even at the time when President Ahmadinejad was casting doubts on the reality of the Holocaust. It's curious, isn't it? There's all sorts of strange layers going on in Iran.
Absolutely, all sorts of strange layers. And, ironically, since the Islamic Revolution, because the Islamic law was supported by the majority of Iranians, and because it didn't really work, so they've started questioning it themselves. As a result, you're getting, a lot of a new kind of modernism developing that's coming out of a dialogue with Islam rather than, an externally imported one. And also the arts are flourishing because people aren't that much interested in joining political parties anymore. They're much more interested in, especially young people. 70% are under 30 in Iran, so it's a very young country. They're much more interested in finding ways of expressing their creative abilities. So music, theatre, film, visual arts are really, really blossoming and very inspiring for people like me.
You must have tossed your hat in the air with joy at the discomfiture the other day in America, the news that, in fact, no, there probably isn't a nuclear missile program
it was
going on after all.
We had a question-answer session after one of the performances, and the Persian Revolution, we put Tintin in the Persian Revolution. That's one of my ways of trying to make it more interesting, simply because we had lots of Belgians in 1906 in Iran. So
Tintin's in the show.
Yes, Tintin's in the show, and in different places they come and go. And at the end, I found this in Destination Moon in Tintin. Talking about uranium, Captain Haddock and Professor Calculus. I thought, well, I have to put that in, and it ends with that. And I thought, given the news recently, which makes the whole thing look like a comic book, it's happening. I think that ending really.
Like Nigel, you made part of your own childhood and childhood difficulties into a piece of art. I think it was about just 10 years ago, they were talking about then, Death by Heroin with an E. That dealt with some of that terrifying transition for you of being a happy child in the old Persia under the Shah and being stranded in Britain, really, come the revolution. I mean, as a child, you were sort of stranded in the end without both parents, weren't you?
Yes, I was. I was actually, I never wanted to come to Britain at all. I was perfectly happy in Iran. And even after the revolution, I was quite eager to go back because I just wanted... Nigel's sitting next to me. I loved Iranian food and I miss that terribly. And there's something that you can never get rid of, in something which is very much part of your identity is the food. I think it's really, really important. And smells and so on. So it was very, very difficult to sort of, at that point, to carve a new identity for yourself or find your place, especially without your parents.
But you were young as well when you were here originally with your mother while you were at school, and then she decided to go back, but it was not really, she felt perhaps safe to take you back after the revolution. So you and your brother lived pretty independently, very young, didn't you? Yes,
well, I was 14 and he was 17, and we were left 3 recipes, which we cooked every week. And one of them was turkey legs, and I can't. I have trouble at Christmas with turkey.
And so you just cooked all 3 recipes and carried on being at school and struggling into life, really.
Yes, and it's only when I decided, because I was being pushed to become some scientist or civil engineer, as all young lads at the time, Iranian lads were pushed to become. And it's when I rebelled and started to study French and English A-levels, and then I studied literature and philosophy after that. That's when I sort of began to,
And you studied. I mean, you worked as a psychoanalyst.
Yes,
as well.
Then I trained as a psychoanalyst, and I really enjoyed the work. People ask me, why did you not continue? And I half seriously, half joking, say, because it wasn't glamorous enough, but I really do mean that. I did find the theatre. No, but I did find, I loved the work, but I didn't want to spend the rest of my life just, speaking psychobabble.
I mean, there must be a lot of pain still around the whole business. I know you did see your father again, didn't you, before he died?
Yes.
You did see your father, but I mean, it is a kind of, I said at the beginning, exile, not meaning it in the sense of refugee, but it is a kind of exile, isn't it?
Well, it is, but it's kind of, it's not necessarily an exile from a country anymore. You can't really identify yourself with any particular, ethnicity or culture. You sort of pick and choose, and you try to live with all of it. That's why I really try to resist being categorized in one way or the other. And it's not something that you can decide anymore. It just happens after that. And now I really enjoy it. But early on it was quite hard and difficult because you're always looking for an identity.
How often do you get back? How easy is it to get back?
It's fine. It's easy to get back. I try to go back at least once, if not twice. Also, I've made lots of friends in the theatre world in Iran. And I just find it very, very inspiring and exciting. And the topics I find over there are just wonderful. I've just written a play for Radio 4 about hymenoplasty, for example, which is, apparently Iran is the world capital for plastic surgery now. It's ahead of Brazil. So I was coming back last year in the airport, and there are 2 entrances, one for women where they're going to be checked, and one for men. And the first 8 women in that queue had all bandages on their noses, and I had to do a double take to make sure that I haven't really. But yes, they did, and they weren't related. So it's this kind of because the country was modernized so kind of radically and superficially. Now we have everything that's repressed. All these individual desires have been repressed, have resurfaced. Coupled with Islam, and you get this wonderful, strange happenings like that.
What are your own feelings about Islam now? I mean, it must be complicated.
I think it's really important to understand that, there is always a kind of some moral authority that you have to negotiate with. And the trouble with Iran has been that Western countries and people, secular groups within Iran, have tried to pretend that's not the case, but Islam has been the moral authority, and that's why the 79 revolution was so popular and quite violent as well, to re-establish itself. So, I respect that, and I sort of, along with many other people, try to negotiate with that. So I'm keen to do productions in Iran, but you have to negotiate what you can put on and what you can't put on. But I'm fine with that, and I respect that. And I think Iran is very slowly moving towards democracy.
And you can go back there and get
The
some
Americans
decent. Go back there and get some decent food that doesn't involve turkey.
Yes.